The crown beneath the cloth. When humility became royalty, the story of Ògbè Òyèkú. The river speaks, even when its mouth is full of stones. In the days when the earth was still young enough to blush at the touch of the sun, there lived a peddler who carried cloth upon his head, a patchwork of colors, blues like the feathers of the kingfisher, reds deep as the blood of sacrifice, whites as soft as the belly of a newborn goat. His feet were calloused from the many roads he had walked. His shoulders stooped not from age, but from the weight of wares and the patience of his journey. They called him Alakara, the seller of cloth, and in the market squares his voice rose sweetly, like palm wine poured fresh into a calabash. Fine wrappers, fine cloths for the beautiful daughters of the land. No one bowed when he passed. No one cleared the way for the man whose hands smelled of dye and whose fingers were stained with the blue of indigo. But the heavens were watching, for Ògbè Òyèkú is the sign where the humble are lifted, where the unseen becomes the foundation, where the empty calabash is the one fit to carry the water of kingship. And in this Odù it is said, the head of the fish remains hidden beneath the water until the day it leaps into the hand of the fisherman. It happened that the throne of a great kingdom stood empty. The Oba had died without heir, and the land, without its head, was like a body in seizure, trembling with the fear of collapse. The chiefs, the elders, the priestly houses, they gathered beneath the sprawling shadow of the sacred Iroko tree to seek the voice of the oracles. Ifá, they asked, who shall wear the crown? Who among us is worthy? The Ikin fell. The marks spoke. Ògbè Òyèkú. But the diviner smiled softly, for Ògbè Òyèkú does not call the loud, nor the boastful. It does not bend toward the sword or the strong arm. No, this Odù sings for the one who kneels without being told, the one who walks quietly, whose shadow does not arrive before his feet. The diviner cast again, and Ifá revealed the face of the chosen, not a nobleman, not a warrior, not even a son of the palace. The cloth seller. When the message reached Alakara, he was sitting by the roadside, mending a torn wrapper with thread as fine as hair. The bearers of the news approached him with their heads high, expecting disbelief, expecting resistance, but he only looked up, his eyes soft, his smile easy. I am but a peddler, he said. What should I know of wearing a crown? But the Awa repeated, Ifá does not lie. The crown is yours by destiny. And so it was that they took Alakara from the dust of the roads and wrapped him not in cloth, but in the white robes of the king. They led him beneath the iron gates of the palace, into the place where only the feet of royals had walked. They washed his head with the 7 sacred waters, anointed him with the oils of Ori, and placed the crown, heavy as iron, soft as song, upon his brow. The people gathered. Some rejoiced, for they knew him as kind, a man who had never cheated a widow nor scorned the orphan. But others whispered, disbelieving, is this not the cloth seller? How can this man rule us? The days passed, and Alakara, now Ògbè Alakara, ruled with a heart as steady as the tortoise's step. Where others would have raised taxes, he lifted burdens. Where others would have raised armies, he raised schools. He spoke not from the mouth of pride, but from the belly of wisdom. One day, a nobleman came before him, eyes narrowed, full of contempt. Great king, the man spat. We remember the dust upon your feet. You are a seller of cloth, not born of the royal line. How dare you speak as a ruler? Ògbè Alakara did not rise from his seat. He only nodded and called for his eldest servant. Bring me my oldest wrapper, he said. And when the servant returned, the king held it up high for all to see. "Do you know this cloth?" he asked the nobleman. "You purchased it from me long before these walls called me king. You wore it to the naming of your son." The nobleman could not deny it. The king stood, his voice low but strong as the growl of thunder in the belly of the clouds. "It was with these hands that I served the people before destiny called me to serve them from the throne. And it is by these same hands that I will rule, not by blood, but by the measure of my deeds." In this way, the proverb of Ògbè Òyèkú breathed life into the story. One does not know the worth of the snail until its shell is cracked open. The cloth seller ruled wisely and long, and under his reign the land flourished. The rivers ran full, the children laughed freely in the streets, and even the trees seemed to bear fruit a little sweeter. But the king never forgot his road. Every year on the anniversary of his coronation, he walked barefoot through the market, carrying on his head a single cloth, calling out, as he did in the old days, "Fine wrappers for the beautiful daughters of the land." Not to mock his past, but to remember, because Ògbè Òyèkú teaches, the one who forgets the dust upon their feet is already halfway buried, but the land remembers, even when men forget. The story of Ògbè Òyèkú, the king who once was a humble cloth seller, passed from tongue to tongue, from grandmother's knee to the ears of babes who played beneath the orange trees. And like all good stories, it carried more than memory. It carried medicine. For in the sign of Ògbè Òyèkú, the medicine is balance. The diviners teach that Ogbe is the father of beginnings. Oyeku is the womb where all things must return. Ogbe expands, creates, speaks. Oyeku listens, receives, conceals. The power of this Odù lies not in either alone, but in the dance between them, the breath in and the breath out, the seed and the soil, the road and the home. It is in forgetting this balance that illness is born. It is in remembering it that kings rise from the dust. The head that chooses the crown, teachings on Ori. In those days, not long after his crowning, Ògbè Òyèkú called the elders to his palace. They sat before him on mats woven from palm fronds, chewing kola nut and waiting for his word. The king spoke softly. "Ifá has told me the head of the fish remains hidden beneath the water until the hand of fate draws it out. But who among you can tell me, what is it that draws the fish from the water? Is it the net, the bait, the hand?" The elders nodded, for they knew the lesson he was pointing to. "Even the net waits for permission," said Baba Ifáyemi, the oldest among them. "It is the Ori, the personal head, that chooses." This is the teaching of Ògbè Òyèkú, that Ori, the inner head, is greater than lineage, louder than the shout of the crowd. It is the Ori that knows the path. No crown sits well upon a head that does not already carry the right. The diviners say, a head that fights its own destiny is a child who slaps the hand that feeds. And so, in this Odù, it is recommended that the children of Ògbè Òyèkú feed their Ori with care, daily offerings of water, coconut, gentle words. For Ori is not just the crown of the body, it is the seat of one's agreement with Olódùmarè. To neglect the head is to stand in the marketplace without shelter from the rain. The heart of the clothes seller, leadership and love. It was not long before Ògbè Òyèkú faced his greatest trial. A neighboring kingdom, jealous of the peace that bloomed under his rule, sent emissaries bearing veiled threats. "Surrender your borders," they demanded, "or we will take what we desire by force." The king gathered his chiefs, his warriors, his council of diviners. They urged him to call upon Ògún, to raise the iron, to meet fire with fire. But Ògbè Òyèkú remembered the road beneath his feet, the cloth on his back, the patience of the loom that weaves one thread at a time. Go to the river, he told his generals, and offer 3 goats and honey to Osun. Seek her sweetness before you seek war. The generals grumbled. This is not the way of kings, they muttered. But the diviner nodded, for they knew. In Ògbè Òyèkú, it is not always the strong arm that wins the day. It is the one who knows when to bend like the palm tree before the storm. They obeyed. The offering was made, the honey poured into the river, and the goats given at the bank where the waters run slow. And in the night, the enemy king's own daughter came to Alakara in a dream. She was moved by his restraint, by the justice of his rule. She pleaded with her father, and the war dissolved like salt in the rain. Ògbè Òyèkú teaches, the one who knows how to wait becomes the master of those who rush. And so the cloth seller taught his people that leadership is not loudness, it is the patience of water carving the rock. It is the quiet power of knowing when to speak and when to hold silence. Of illness and the road back to balance. But even a king cannot escape the hands of sickness. One season, the rains fell too long, the rivers swelled, and with the standing water came the fever. People shivered beneath their claws, their bodies burning, their voices hoarse with prayers. When the fever reached the palace gates, touching even the king's household, Ọba Alakara called again upon the Awo. The sign fell, Ògbè Òyèkú. The Babalawo prepared the offering, a cleansing bath of 7 herbs, Ewe Ewuro, bitterleaf, Ewe Aluko, Ewe Akoko, and the roots of the Iroko. They sang the sacred songs, the old chants that call life back into the bones. The body rises, the blood flows, the water carries me back to life. In the steam of the bath, the fever broke, the king was restored, and the people healed. From that day, it became known among the children of Ògbè Òyèkú, where there is too much heat, seek coolness. Where there is too much striving, seek stillness. Illness comes when the breath of Ogbe forgets the embrace of Oyeku. The diviners say, the sun must bow to the moon if the earth is to rest. The wealth of the patient. In the markets of his youth, Alakara had learned the rhythm of money, the way a buyer looks at the cloth, weighing not just its color, but its spirit. The way a seller listens, not only with the ears, but with the heart. In Ògbè Òyèkú, wealth does not rush. It does not come to the hands that snatch. It comes to the hands that are open, that give before they take. This is why, when merchants from distant lands came to trade, the king met them not with demands, but with hospitality. He offered water first, kola nut second, and only then spoke of price. His wealth grew, not because he chased it, but because he honored the cycle. The diviner teach, the hands that give first will always be filled again. And so the cloth seller, the king, became not only ruler of men, but master of commerce. His people thrived, the market sang. The marriage of action and reflection, balance as destiny. There was a night, the kind of night when even the wind holds its breath, when the king sat alone beneath the great baobab tree in the courtyard of his palace. The stars scattered above him like spilled cowrie shells. The moon, bright as a polished calabash, watched over him. Ọba Alakara was troubled. The kingdom was prosperous, the people well-fed, the rivers flowing sweet and clean. Yet the king felt a stirring within his chest, a tightness he could not name. He called for the diviner. "Ifá, speak," he said, "for my dreams are restless." The diviner cast the Ikin, and again Ògbè Òyèkú rose from the sacred tray. The diviner sang softly, the words as old as the bones of the earth. Ogbe speaks, Oyeku listens. Ogbe builds, Oyeku preserves. Too much fire burns the house, Too much water washes the road away. The diviner looked into the eyes of the king and said, "You have been strong, Oba. You have planted many seeds, but have you given yourself the night to rest? Have you let your hands be still long enough to feel the blessings you already hold?" It is the danger of Ogbe, they say, to always begin, to always push forward, to never pause long enough to gather the fruit of one's labor. And it is the danger of Oyeku to fall too deep into the silence, to withhold the song too long. In the meeting of these two, action and reflection, lies the path of the wise. The king listened. From that day, once a month, Oba Alakara ordered the drums to be silenced, the market to rest, the palace to be quiet. No meetings, no judgments, only prayer, rest, and reflection. It became known as the Day of Balance. The people learned, as their king learned, that progress is not the same as motion, that there is power in pausing, that the earth herself must sleep to be fertile again. The ancestors beneath the cloth. When the cloth seller rose to become king, the elders of the land whispered of his line. From where did he come? What blood flows in his veins? But Ògbè Òyèkú does not speak of blood alone. It speaks of alignment. The diviner gathered the stories of his ancestors and found that though his father had been a weaver and his mother a seller of groundnuts, their hands were clean, their hearts upright. Their blessings, though unspoken, had been placed upon their son like invisible crowns. This is the teaching of Ibi Ori, that one's destiny is not only forged by personal choice, but carried by the blessings, sacrifices, and prayers of those who walked before. The diviner taught, "Even a tree born in the shadow will rise toward the sun if the roots are strong." So Oba Alakara built a shrine in the palace, not grand but humble, a space for the spirits of his line, where kola nut cracked between fingers, where water was poured daily upon the earth. And there he spoke to his mothers and fathers, calling their names into the smoke of incense, offering thanks for the path they had cleared beneath his feet. This is the way of Ògbè Òyèkú, to honor the seen and the unseen alike. The return to cloth. Many years passed. The king grew older, his beard turning the silver of river fish. His eyes, once quick as the squirrel, softened like the dusk sky before rain. On the eve of his 70th year, Oba Alakara gathered the people. He stood once more beneath the Iroko tree, wearing not the robes of kingship, but the simple cloth of a market seller. "I began as a peddler," he said, "and today I return to the cloth." In his hands he held a wrapper, the same pattern he had sold in his youth, woven now with golden threads that shimmered like sunlight on water. "This cloth," he said, raising it above his head, "taught me my first lesson, that what covers the body also holds the story, that we are all wrapped in the garments of our choices, and each thread is a prayer, a work, a word." The people wept, for they understood. The king did not die upon the throne. He chose to step away, to sit again by the roadside, weaving stories into the warp and weft of cloth, teaching the young boys and girls the patience of the loom. And the land remembered, for this is the secret of Ògbè Òyèkú, that beginnings and endings are the same road, that the king and the cloth seller are not two men, but one, that the crown and the wrapper are woven from the same thread. Final word, the proverb remembered, topics. The diviner closed the story with this proverb: "One does not know where the head of the fish is until it is out of the water." Do not judge by what the eye sees first. Do not dismiss the one who stands quietly at the edge of the room. For the greatest leaders, the strongest loves, the deepest healings often wear the clothes of humility. And as the sun bows once again to the moon, the earth breathes easy. The cloth is folded. The story remains. Ashe.